lovelies. Not much really this week. I think because we're at the height of summer, people are away doing other things, not sitting at home watching videos so much. Or maybe Algorithmo has turned his back upon us. So yeah, not a lot, but let's get into it. Housekeeping. I had to scrap a chunk of a project I'd spent a week working on. Some freelancing work, translating an adventure from one game setting, one set of rules, one set of assumptions, to a different one for a whole bunch of other things, and after a week of trying to make it work, I realised it wasn't necessary to the whole overall adventure, and so I deleted the whole bit. So, sometimes you have to spend a lot of time wrangling with something just to realise that you don't actually need it. Still, super annoying and felt like a huge waste of time. And kind of knocked the wind out of my sails for a bit. Coming soon, we should have a couple of videos guest hosted by my good friend Rachel Haywire. Her perspective as a musician, she was an industrial musician back in the day, still is, really, still puts out stuff occasionally. Her perspective on AI, which I think will be interesting because Rachel these days works as a kind of cultural futurist amongst many other things. Industrial music, like electronic music, was kind of at the forefront of including technology in music, so I think she'll have some interesting insights and things to say about stuff like Suno and fake bands created by AI now appearing on places like Spotify and diluting the music by real artists. So long as there's a way to differentiate, I don't think that I have a particular massive problem with it. Certainly AI music tools have allowed me to write lyrics and then have something come together without having to know how to play a note or having to have friends who can play instruments. Maybe I'm just left with a hostility to musicians after running into too many guitar guys at parties in my teens and 20s. I don't know. But yeah, that'll be interesting, and she's going to do maybe one or two other videos for me as well. Well, the audio for them, anyway. Some other freelancing that I handed out to other people is kind of trickling in. The zine appears to be somewhat back on track, so hopefully that'll be launching soonish. The freelancing that's trickling in obviously requires me to have the time to do anything with it. And when will I have the time to do that? No fucking idea. Am I a soft touch, Grim Cult? People come up to me and they ask for work because they're short of money or whatever, and I pay, often in advance, despite being a impoverished, disabled game creator myself. Usually get something out of it because most people are good when it comes to it. But am I a soft touch for just like doing that? I don't know. Censorship, as you know, is a bit of a bee in my particular bonnet, and controversy around censorship has blown up yet again around Steam. I feel I should comment. Maybe it's not video worthy necessarily. Maybe it is. But a whole bunch of adult games have been taken off Steam on the basis that they may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors. So they're retiring various games from the store because this causes problem because of payment methods. So, you know, this is the old Visa and MasterCard saying, well, you can't spend money on perfectly legal goods. You're using us. Don't you miss, he said as a left anarchist, don't you miss capitalism when it was just about making the most money possible in every situation? You know, when it was amoral, not immoral, and when it didn't seek to impose draconian and censorious points of view on people, right? You are a payment processor. Your job is to take my money and pass it electronically to someone else. And unless that's for illegal goods, it is none of your fucking business what I spend my money on. Whether it's, I don't know, pick what the latest game that you like, or whether it's some H-game fat material. I don't see that it is anything to do with you. And yet, time and time again, we've seen this problem. And even when it comes to explicitly adult content, porn, obviously, I know about this being porn adjacent. Payment processors cause all kinds of problems. Now, it's not that they won't process your payment, it's that they want you to use special, obscure, difficult, and more expensive payment processors. So maybe it is naked, unregulated capitalism after all. It's just they want the people who are going to pay for porn, who they know are dedicated to finding ways to do so, they want to channel them all into more expensive payment processing. So it's not some moral objection necessarily to the content or the nature of the work. It's just that they want to get paid more, which in turn deprives adult workers and sex workers, many of whom are marginalized as well in one way or another, deprives them of money because it gets passed on to them and then passed on to the consumer. So maybe that's the problem. They haven't explicitly said what is and isn't allowed, at least not publicly. They may have done to developers. But according to payment processors, at least, and based on the list of stuff that's been removed, it seems to relate to, quote, extreme, unquote, types of subject matter, such as incest, sexual assault, torture, and slavery. Now, on the face of it, maybe you might not think that that's so bad, but, that includes, oh no, stepbrother, very common fantasies that a majority of people of the affected gender have, and also can be, and has been, overinterpreted to all but eliminate BDSM material. And within the subgenre and culture of BDSM, consent is central, first and foremost, as is safety. I'm really getting tongue-tied today. So, getting on for 2/3 of women, according to some studies, have had non-consensual fantasies, which doesn't mean that they actually want any of that to happen to them in real life. It's a fantasy. And that these fantasies are frequent for getting on to about 20% of people. I don't think a fantasy scenario held to by what appears to be a majority of a demographic can properly be described as extreme. And fantasies obviously aren't reality. I mean, you can find mild versions of this in bodice rippers, and you don't get much more mainstream than a lot of those old romance novels. As for torture, as I say, BDSM is strictly consensual. This goes for slavery as well, I suppose. And various censoring groups have tended not to understand it at all, which is understandable because it's squicky to some people, and yet they still seek to censor it. And this affects things even like completely safe and relatively tame spanking. Go and read Pandora Blake's blog for her ongoing struggles with this kind of censorship. And the same goes with slavery, power exchange, darkly fantastical settings, some forms of race play and so on, which is a bit of a squick for me, almost as bad as feet, but people are entitled to their kinks, I always think. There's always a danger in trying to explain these things and why these censorship rules are bad, that you'll end up looking bad. It's like that joke by Gianmarco Soresi, where he's explaining the difference between a paedophile, a hebephile, and an ephebophile. And the trouble is, as he goes on to point out, is that explaining the differences and the gradations between these makes you sound like a paedophile. So when I try to explain the difficulties that come from censoring incest porn, sexual assault porn, torture porn, and slavery porn, it makes me sound like an incestuous rapist, torturer, and enslaver, which I'm not, obviously. But yeah, censorship bothers me, particularly sexual censorship. I think sexual censorship bothers me the most because it is so completely not anybody else's business. I think that's what it is. Maybe I should work this up into a video, but I think I've covered all the main points. I mean, so this is the payment processors. So they're not allowing any of these things, but are they equally censoring serious films or books or whatever that tackle these topics in a mature and with gravitas? Yeah, are they doing the same for those? Can I still use my Visa to rent a digital copy of Irreversible or Boxing Helena or Shit Zone, even Pulp Fiction? Yeah, it's the trouble with these sorts of things. And just to end cap this, it's none of their fucking business. Take my money, give it to that guy. That's what you're for. You should have no more say in it than a carrier pigeon carrying a note. Anyway, video comments. On the queer baiting video, Captain Machine says, I despise queer baiting in media that doesn't have the stones to include the reference in the core material, but still wants the credit for being progressive. Dumbledore is one of the worst examples. Yeah, I suppose. It was just kind of egregious because there was no hint of it in the book. Perhaps because they were children's books, though I don't think that's a good reason to exclude gay, trans, bi, whatever characters. You just don't have to go into any particularly big description of anything. But the worst one for me is when they put something progressive in the Western release of a film, even if it's just in the background, and then it mysteriously disappears when that film is sent over to China or somewhere. If you really believe in the cause, then these things need to be included in territories and so on where people aren't as free, where people don't have as many rights, where it's likely to upset the powers that be. It just shows instantly that it's an empty gesture. On the More on Cartomancy video, Paul Berry says, critical whole oracle cards when? Probably never. The 10 of dicks. Oops. All porn. Norman the Cabbage inverted. I don't know. On the for sale video, Edward says, nobody wants to see the authentic me, just ask my ex-wife. I wonder why Marvel has never done a comic called Ex-Wife. I think that would be quite funny. Maybe Scott Summers and Phoenix. Liberty Avalanche says, the book You and Your Profile by Hans-Georg Mueller deals directly with a lot of the issues you discuss here. It might be of interest to you. I will try and remember to pick it up at some time, but I wanted to read out the comment in case anyone else might be interested in it and go and look it up on Amazon or wherever else. Salsa Doom says, you hit the nail on the head. We're looking for honesty. In a world of illusion, nothing is more valuable than the truth. Guerrilla marketing is now the norm, e.g. Daggerheart. Is this just a consequence of the democratization of the media we consume? Yes and no. I mean, they want to advertise cheaply and they need to spread their efforts across multiple things, which is why you have stuff like micro-influencers that they go for. The thing that really pisses me off at the moment, I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the original video, is these stories on TikTok which look like heartwarming, like some guy's rescuing some kittens or something, and it's a slideshow showing the progress, and you flip through and then bam, you get hit with an advert in the middle of it for something, and you realise the whole thing is completely disingenuous. I hate that, particularly because it fools me and then you feel like an idiot. On the Moida video, D&D is dead. Ace Upon a Sleeve says, if you cast Animate Dead on a dead zombie, does it cancel itself out and you get the effect of Revivify? Or do you get an undead? I think, taking D&D as the example, you don't have to shoot D&D zombies in the head, you just need to do enough damage to them that they collapse. I think the most sensible option would be to regard a suitably destroyed zombie as not being able to be resurrected again. Otherwise you just end up with yo-yo zombies, but that's no fun. So maybe you can only resurrect a double dead zombie as a skeleton because the flesh is too damaged, but the bones can come together. There you go, there's an answer. Talk to you soon. Zang.
Satana Station is an addition to Machinations of the Space Princess. It's a whole sleazy space station, full of locations, services, adventures and inspiration for your old school space opera games. Over 100 locations, a bevy of non-player characters and more plot hooks than you can shake an Arcturan mega stick at. Buy it at post-mort.com, drive-through RPG and hard copy at lulu.com.